Center will come to order at 6:10 p.m. We would like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for joining us at the Cleveland Community Police Commission meeting today as we embark on the journey of chartering new jurisdiction under Charter 115-5. It is in times of transformation and adaptation our collective efforts are needed the most. We are the first version of the new Cleveland Community Police Commission. It is no easy task to reshape a system. We are learning when to create change to increase safety, uphold constitutional rights, and increase fairness for the most marginalized residents in Cleveland. In other instances, the CPC work is compliance related to the consent decree and understanding hierarchy of parliamentary procedure, which includes city ordinances, state statutes, and federal. We recognize that our city faces many challenges, and in the face of this transformative process, it is crucial that we remain steadfast in our commitment to building bridges and finding solutions. Let it motivate us to take action and create transformation. It is my hope that we can connect on our shared purpose to move this work forward. Thank you for your dedication to the cause of unity, understanding, and justice, for your presence here today as we navigate the process of chartering new territory together. We will now conduct a roll call. Commissioner Adams?
Present.
Commissioner Benito?
Present.
Commissioner Shura?
Present.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Present.
Commissioner Early?
Present.
Commissioner Ferguson, excused absence. Commissioner Kennedy?
Present.
Commissioner Reeves?
Present.
Co-Chair Ridgway?
Present.
Commissioner Van Leer, excused absence. Co-Chair Rodriguez? Present. Commissioner Wong?
Present.
Commissioner Zayed?
Present.
A quorum of commissioners needed to conduct business have been met. The next item of business is just to discuss briefly meeting decorum. Overall, please refrain from side conversations, and all comments should be directed to the presiding officer, as well as just a quick review of public comments, which is on the back side of the second page. And when that purpose comes, we'll go more in depth. But basically, just be respectful of each perspective, as well as speaking one at a time.
Co-Chair Rodriguez, I would like to make one agenda change. It's just an error on the agenda. The Outreach Committee, chaired by Commissioner Zayed, should be part of the police committees rather than one of our standing committees.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Are there any further additions to the agenda? Okay, the next item of business is to approve 2 sets of minutes. The minutes for September 27, 2023 were distributed for your review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Excuse me. I just want to note that I had provided line edits to the meeting minutes because I did not feel that there were some factual inaccuracies, and I didn't feel that they gave enough substance for the public to read the minutes, scan the minutes, and know what actually was happening, which I think is the point of the minutes. Asking the public to watch a 2.5 hour meeting in order to determine if there's something that they're interested in, I think is not the best service to the public. So I do not think the minutes that have been revised fulfill that standard. And we had discussed this in the Rules Committee, that the standard should be that it is for the public, for a person to be able to figure out what is happening in the meeting. So I'm a little bit frustrated because I gave actual line edits back to the staff, and they rewrote it again in a way that actually became less concrete, less precise, and less detailed. So, it seems like everybody is going to pass these minutes, but this is an issue that needs to be addressed. If it's not capturing the disagreements and, quite honestly, some of the Robert's rules that are being openly flouted in our meetings. I don't think that's a service to the community so that they can't know what is actually happening. But I don't want to call out any staff members, but I just don't understand if I make line edits and it's completed, why that wasn't taken up into the minutes and it was revised again, diluting it down from its specificity. Thank you.
Are there any further comments or concerns regarding the minutes? So I guess we'll proceed with a vote, and the vote determines how the next process should be. The question is on the adoption of accepting or seeking further refinement for the minutes distributed for September 27, 2023. Let me find my little handy sheet with the name of commissioners. Commissioner Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Schurer.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Co-Chair Ridgway.
Aye.
Co-Chair Rodriguez. Aye. Commissioner Wong.
Nay.
Commissioner Zayed.
Abstain.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 yeses, which means the motion passes. The minutes for 2027, September 2027, 2023, will be placed on our website for review and audit. The next set of minutes are for October 19th. So the minutes for October 19th, 2023 were distributed for your review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I move to approve.
I have the same
Commissioner.
comments about those minutes. So I wish that there could be actually a debate and discussion about this rather than running roughshod over things that were both inaccurate from a factual standpoint and also not cohesive enough and holistic enough to show what actually happened in the meeting. It's a little concerning to me that we're just voting this through.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion at this time?
I second the motion.
Well, I thought you said.
I moved it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're going to take a vote. Commissioner Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Schurer.
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Co-Chair Ridgway.
Aye.
Co-Chair Rodriguez. Aye. Commissioner Wong.
Nay.
Commissioner Zayed.
Abstain.
Okay. So let the record reflect that there was 10 yeses. The motion is carried.
Commissioner, Co-Chair, it would be more proper to announce all of the votes, not just the winning vote. 10 ayes, I mean, that would be a much more accurate reflection.
The motion is carried and will be reflected in the minutes along with the vote of each individual commission member. Thank you so much. We will proceed with the next business item. So just a general overview of the meeting. The first section to any new attendees will be just a quick overview of the meeting. In the public comment section, it's approximately 20 to 30 minutes, and then the various reports will be approximately from 6:30 p.m. to 7:50 p.m. And then we will present any old or new business, and if time permits, we may open for a second public comment. Commissioner Adams.
Just to the chair, I just wanted to just make a small corrective. I think the vote is 9 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain. Just, there's 11 commissioners, so I just wanted to just make sure that we're correct on the record. Thank you.
Okay. So the first vote was 10, wait.
No, it's
Nine.
always 9.
One,
There's
two,
only
three,
11
four,
commissioners
five,
here.
six, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9. So please allow the record to reflect 9 yeses, 1 no, and then 1 abstain. So the next item of business is public comment. At this time, do we have anybody that would like to step forward?
Is it on? Oh, okay, there we go, great. Good afternoon, evening. This has been a long day. I just wanted to address Mrs. Wong's concerns. I find it, that it's kind of alarming for a citizen or a resident to go on your website to try to obtain minutes and they're not there. And then to hear that there are inaccuracies and inconsistencies in the minutes, it's alarming, because when we go to those websites to get those minutes, we want full transparency and documentations of what's happening within these meetings. It's required within the Public Records Act that those minutes be documented and made available to the public. So I just want to echo her concerns about that, and so that we can have those listed on the website in full transparency, so that the community can be aware of what's taking place within these meetings. So I just wanted to address that. And I also wanted to address the process of the grants. I did watch what took place with the grant process. It was very exacerbating to see how long that process took, but I'm glad that it has been fulfilled and accomplished, so that we did not have to return funding back to the city. So I thank you all for your due diligence on that as well. But I did find some of the selections of the recipients to be a little bit problematic, because there were not enough grassroots folks within those selections that did not receive funding. So I will say that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, I just want to say something. I am the founder of Citizens for Safer Cleveland. That was issue 24 to get the family started. But LaTanya, we had nominated her to be president, and Kareem is the vice president. But I'm going to say this. Sometimes we agree to disagree, and that happens when you're in an establishment. You're going to agree to disagree, but it's how you disagree. And I think you guys know where I'm coming from with this. We'll go off on each other. Well, LaTanya, she kind of nice. She'll go on my side sometimes, but then she'll say, sometimes, Brenda, you're wrong. And I'm just going to say, sometimes you're going to agree to disagree, and you don't have to do it in public. If I'm doing something wrong, what I like about LaTanya will do the corrective and correct me. But she correct me in a way as a learning experience, not to beat me over my head and try to demean me. And I'm saying this to all of you. Ms. Ridgway is the chair. Sometimes she might have to hit her gavel. You may not agree on what she says, but what you can do, if you don't agree, when it's not in front of the camera, you can say, okay, Ms. Ridgway, I didn't agree with that, but I understand where you're coming from. You don't want to be a commission, because I watch stuff. As a good PI, I observe very well. I may not say nothing, but it doesn't mean that I'm asleep to it. I'm watching. And this is the issue. You're here because the people voted you in office. You're here to focus on the accountability of the police. Remember, it's two people you're dealing with. You're dealing with the person that filed a complaint and the officer that is against. Both of them, and I'm going to keep saying it, deserve due process. Not only that, their issue deserves your undivided attention every time, even if you don't agree. And it's not for you to agree to disagree with that. It's for you to be impartial. And I'm going to keep praying for you, and I'm going to keep pressing you to get to that point. I don't like seeing, well, if someone made a mistake or if it's an error, like LaTanya just mentioned about those minutes, you have to be mindful and put that stuff out there. Because people will say, well, I thought they were supposed to be transparent. That's what I voted for. You have to get it there. And I believe in this commission, or we would have never did what we did to get it here. But it belongs to the voters. It don't belong to us. It belongs to the voters in Cleveland, whether they voted for it or not. But it's just a fruitful thought. When someone make an error or a mistake, no matter how much education you got, no matter what school you went to, try not to demean them. Just say, hey, you need to do it this way. And trust me, when you start doing that, you're going to start seeing you're going to be able to get along with one another and respect each other's decisions and suggestions. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm here to agree to disagree with the person just spoke before me. Would this person come up to beat me up? No. However, this is from the other angle about all of you. Issue 24 was voted by people coming out to vote. However, all of you are not exactly as elected officials. Even there was certain process. That process itself was not totally transparent. All of you mostly are actually appointed. This actually could be considered a flaw. This is the reason why you still have a problem with conflict of interest. You can be independently find an attorney for your operation or not. You have this kind of issue. This will not be the only one, but this is a serious one. I definitely agree that among yourselves, you should agree to disagree, but not it's how to disagree, it's also what to disagree. If you already consider your own ideology is the most important thing, based on that you disagree with other commissioners, then please think twice. The community would not like to see this continue. For you guys to argue in front of everybody with the cameras on, microphones on, actually at least we have some transparency. However, that also shows some of you are very immature, only focus on your own ideology, but forgot that the whole commission's purpose is not only about your individual ideologies. As I have said that before with you, our community have all kinds of people. And unfortunately, all kinds of people all have got pressure, harassment, retaliation, all kind of unfair treatment or even mistreatment from the wrong police practice. This is something you should focus on. We love to see you having vigorous discussion. You guys have done well on some of the recent meetings, but still, there's a long way to go. If you cannot really get this together in 2 years, all the efforts you have been made probably will be defeated by the things you actually should not consider as important as the whole commission. You are not old enough to have legacies, but please understand, even people still may not really know all your names, But if they only remember every time they watch the recording, it's only arguments. That is not really a good way to build your career. Even you really take this as a career ladder to begin with. People are watching you. Community, the whole community depends on you. So please, don't think you can just disappoint us, because we can still get together to do something even bigger than issue 24, to continue all the good intent and the effort to take us out of the survival mode. We need a proper police practice. Otherwise, that protect to serve, that slogan is a joke. It has been a joke. That's why we need to change it. Please remember, that is actually your priority, not your own personal ideology. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Shannon, Tremont resident. I wanted to first say thank you all for what you're doing. I think we're all here because we all believe in how important it is. And just as a personal, private citizen personal comment, no need to pile on, but just to add that, yeah, like in the context of how important this work is, it's super disappointing. It's super hard to see. And I know we're all human. I get that. But it's really sad and frustrating too. So I thank you in advance for working through this together, because it's really, really, really meaningful. I did want to say I just sort of am in favor also of more detail in the minutes. Don't be afraid to slam us with minutes. Much better to have a 5 or 10-page minutes than one page that doesn't have as much detail. The people who are reading them are reading them. So I imagine that was done with thoughtfulness about conciseness. So I just wanted to say the detail is good. And then as a member of Surge, NEO, wanted to say sort of more formally, I know we're going to get a presentation about the monitor's report, and just had this thought, we're working on care response, we're working with the Care for CLE coalition. Maybe there's another way to sort of draw that line, and I apologize for not having been able to attend the work group on that yet. But the categories that we're struggling the most seem to be officer assistance and support, and supervision, or at least some of the ones that had a bigger need, and I could totally see how a robust non-police care response model could sort of trim the world of what needs to be focused on and, sort of controlled, and that might be helpful in that way as well. I mean, when you're thinking about all the things that the department needs to manage, trimming what they have to have on their plate could be really useful for that as well. So thank you again for being here and for everything you guys are doing. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Kayla. So I think that when you're part of something that has a strong democratic element, one of the best ways to show support for it is at times to be constructively critical. And so I want to make sure that I say that at times if there's criticism, it's actually out of love. And so anyway, I mentioned that to say that it feels like there has not been a lot that's been going on recently with the commission. I know that we gave out grants, and I think that, or y'all, I don't know, whatever. And that's great. It's a really big deal. And that's a big accomplishment. But you guys have so many different things that are spinning and going on. Lots of meetings have been canceled because there hasn't been work that's gotten done, which is good to cancel the meetings if things aren't getting done. I mean, if there's nothing to have a meeting for, not a fan of having meetings for no reason. And, but I will say that as a person who feels very committed to this issue, it's been a little bit challenging the last, I would say like 2 months maybe, of wanting to be more active and helpful, and then feeling like that's not really being picked up to some extent on your guys' side. Even being, a member on work group meetings and that sort of thing, it shouldn't be on us to be reaching out to you guys and trying to make sure that those things are happening and being on it, I want to be here for whatever it is, for myself, as for whatever it is that I could be useful for to you guys. But I'm not a commissioner, and we need to be getting more from you guys, I feel like, to make sure that we're pushing things along. I won't, press again about, how much power you guys have potentially at your hands and ability to change, and just hoping that we can keep pushing the needle forward on that and doing everything we can. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and audience. My name is Johnny Ham. I'm a resident here of Old Brooklyn. So since you guys are in my backyard today, I figured I'd stop by. I'm also a captain with the Cleveland Division of Police here in the 2nd District. I used to attend the majority of the previous commission's meetings, and I spoke up often at them. When you guys were empowered, I actually applied to be a commissioner because I thought, well, I didn't agree with issue 24, but if it's going to be in place, we need the right people in place. And when the mayor and council selected you all, I looked through the vast majority of your bios, watched most of your interviews, and I think they selected well. I think you're a good body for this commission. I know I had a whole diatribe of other things to say, but I think most of it's already been covered. Cleveland voters have selected you to make the decisions. It is up to you all to make the decisions. No matter what's said at this mic, at a media event or a politician, you guys are the ones that make the decisions. In addition to that, right now, you have the Department of Justice, the monitors, and the settlement agreement already in place working with the police department actively. You just saw the report that came out. It lists everything that needs to be done. Your focus doesn't have to be the police right now. Your focus should be getting this commission right. You need a foundation, a sturdy foundation that will carry this commission into the future. Don't just think about yourselves, think about what this is going to be tomorrow and beyond that. Not only for my kids, but my grandkids. So far, I've seen some issues of conflict, but that's okay as long as you work through them. Conflict is not a bad thing. Disagreements are not a bad thing. When I used to write policy for the Division of Police, and the guy that used to work with me, we would get in this heated debates about what we thought should be written how, to the point where we were almost screaming at each other. And then we would go to lunch, because what we did was to create the best product that we could, and we understood that. That is now your job, to create the best product that you can for the Cleveland residents that voted for this. You probably have the worst job of all the commissioners coming forward because of this. If you get it right and do everything like it's supposed to be and create a phenomenal commission going forward, you will probably be forgotten. However, if you fail and you create a commission that fails, you will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any further comments? Okay, hence none. We're going to move to the co-chair report. I do want to note that the last 2 minutes that were approved will be the remaining for the full commission meeting, and then it is our plan to catch up and to ensure that the minutes will be posted for the committees as well. Thank you so much for your patience. We are working expeditiously to ensure that we are transparent in this process. A number of us are going to NACO, so we're looking forward to that in November, which will allow us to continue to learn and to grow as commissioners. And I'm pretty sure we'll have valuable information, and then we will apply it to hopefully create that commission that we all want. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I would just like to thank the commissioners who worked so hard to get these grants done. It was like a major lift. I know I did 2 all-nighters myself, and I came in on it late and conducted over 13 interviews in one day. So I know that it was a heavy lift for this commission when you receive over 90-some applications, and we ended up with 26 awardees, and I know John would probably share some of this in his report, but it was amazing work, and it shows the ability of this commission to work collaboratively to accomplish what we need to accomplish. It was amazing work, and I know that all decisions are not popular. All decisions don't receive 100% agreement, but I think if you were to look at the geographic area, it represents almost all of Cleveland in some way, and that was part of the matrix that we worked so hard. Thank you for filling in that data to make happen. So sometimes when we are not visible and present, to the community, we are still working. And I reiterated that today when I presented before the federal judge, and we were fortunate for the very first time through this third iteration of a commission to be able to share our own narrative, to be able to talk about our progress, even our failures, in terms of some of the conflict that we have experienced. I appreciate the comment that this is our freshman year, and anyone who knows about freshman organizations and freshman classes, there's always discord and contention that first year. But we're moving toward collaborative focus. That was the one thing that was pointed out about this commission in the 13th semi-annual report. Our behavior definitely was noted, but I do believe that we are beginning to turn a corner, that we are reaching a tipping point where we can say that we are moving forward the way we need to go. So I appreciate those of you who sent me comments to include, for Jason for taking the time and listening to me in the middle of the night last night when I began to panic about what I should be saying. It was just, it's been a busy and a very, very tiring last 2 weeks. And I'm not just saying that. I think there are many of you at this table who can vouch for that. It has been a very tiring meeting. We're looking forward to NACO and getting away and bumping heads in a positive way with other civilian police oversight committees across the country. So I think I think that would be our goal, is preparing for NACO and hoping to come away with more information and training that could help us be that commission that you talked about in your public comments. So thank you.
Thank you so much for representing us. And because we will be at NACO and because of the holiday, our next meeting will be in December. December 13th, and that will be where the commanders will be presenting their reports on what they've been doing in the community and allowing an opportunity to see a face to a name. The next item of business is the Executive Director report given by Jason Goodrich.
Good evening, everybody. To the community members, thank you for attending this evening. I think it's been a minute since we've been on the west side and here in the second, so happy to see some new faces here. It's always wonderful. And commissioners, yes, you should give yourselves a round of applause for getting these grants out. Having watched you come together and even those not involved in the Budgets and Grants Committee, accepting the call by Chair Adams to assist, the late nights in the office, the backing each other up on Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call. It was wonderful to get to that finish line. So I can assure you, the staff is working with legal department and the city budget management office to get those contracts signed and get that funding out to the community where the voters wanted it. So great job on that, and congratulations on what is the first of many milestones, I think, for this group in the future. So I was asked to give a little bit of update and summary of both the 13th semiannual report and what happened today at the status conference hearing for those who could not attend. It was great to see commissioners in attendance. I know it's hard. A lot of you have full-time duties and responsibilities in your life, and also part-time duties and responsibilities in your life on top of this. So it was great. It's always great that you can get away and attend. The 13th semiannual report is the first from the new monitor, Carl Racine, and the firm Hogan Lavelle. There were a little bit of tweaks to that. Most notably, it seems to be a little more condensed than past monitoring team reports, a little more to the point, and they did change their system a little bit by designating deviations. So if it went up in compliance or down in compliance, this particular monitor, and Carl Racine has noted that in his paragraphs. Some of the major things that were touched on in the report, and I'm not going to, summarize the monitor's words or try to express what the monitor already said in the report. I encourage everybody to read it, but I will say the areas that they were particularly involved in looking at was community and problem-oriented policing, which this commission, going all the way back to 2018, working with the families, was very involved in making some good recommendations for community and problem-oriented policing. It doesn't appear that many of those recommendations became police policy or were they enacted. So it's something we'll have to take a look at. We can go back and dig into the 2018 work of the commission. We can look at what the families had put together and recommended for CPOP, and take a look at how we can impact that and help move it along. Another thing that they were particularly interested in today is the way the city collects data. And it seems to be part of the reason why we're have slowed down to a crawl in compliance, is because they are gathering a lot of data, and everybody said there seems to be a treasure trove of data, but their first problem is sorting bad data out. So they have a tremendous amount of data, and some of it they admitted was not good data. So they said a lot of their time is cleaning up data and fixing data errors, including data that's redundant. So they're working at improving the systems for data collection and trying to get that out, because what they want to do is now be able to look at the data to see what the stories are, right? So, and we haven't gotten there, and that's a big part of compliance is being able to show what's working and what's not working through the data, so that we can collectively use that to especially the commission. It would be helpful for the commission also to have access to that data so that we can see where we can leverage our expertise and the community's expertise to push some of these things forward in the decree. Search and seizure and bias-free policing are one of the points that they need that data and need to have good data to assess what is actually happening out there. So everyone's in agreement that there has been a tremendous amount of policy written. Some of those policies have been written more than once in the 8 years of the consent decree and updated. A tremendous amount of training has been delivered, but what we don't know is the efficacy of those things on the street, and we haven't for multiple reports, and it's been mentioned time and again that the only way we're going to do that is when this data starts rolling and we're able to really analyze it to see, on the street level, what's happening, particularly with search and seizure, stops, and bias-free policing, right? We don't know who the police are stopping, we don't know why they're stopping them, and we don't know if they're using their training or if they're being constitutionally compliant like the consent decree calls for. So until we're able to dive into that data, take a look at it, and do some real hard analysis, or the monitor and us combined, we won't know the answer of compliance. Are we or are we not compliant? Because that is the operational component of it. So those were some of the major areas. Today, there was a milestone, which I'm very proud of as well, and that is that for the very first time, the commission was able to address the court directly in front of Judge Solomon Oliver. So we can thank the citizens for that, for making us independent and able to finally do that. Although we are not a party, we still now have a voice to the judge. So that's wonderful to see us on the other side of the courtroom barrier there. And for the first time, co-chair was asked, and co-chair Ridgway this time carried that burden, and she did a good job trying to summarize a tremendous amount of work in a very short amount of time. Thank you for that, co-chair Ridgway, for that, and congratulations to the commission on having that milestone today. One of the things that's not mentioned in the collective bargaining, in the monitor team's report, but the court today spent a great deal of time discussing, is the issue of collective bargaining. So everyone is in agreement that the city does need to look at the fact of how their work schedules, the pay, jive in a competitive market, right? We know policing has become ultra competitive. The candidate pool is low. And many cities are fighting for that same candidate pool. So everyone was in agreement that it's appropriate to talk to the unions, to work together collaboratively to try and get more recruits. So that's one aspect of it. But what they're concerned about is that, of course, in every negotiation, the union wants something. And what the union wants, both the FOP and the CPPA, is discipline to be addressed in a different way. They have been vocal about that. They have said it. They have conferred that to me and other commissioners, and they have said it publicly. So they entered into this negotiation with the intent to change some disciplinary processes, and they apparently did that. Now, neither one of these contracts has been affirmed by City Council yet, but the court, the monitor, and the DOJ are concerned about whether the negotiations were made in bad faith, because they were not told that these CBAs had been changed and the disciplinary processes regarding Group 1 violations, which are the what would be called low-level offenses, but not necessarily offenses that aren't serious, right? Because if this is on the OPS side, and so we're talking about offenses that are investigated by Office of Professional Standards that are considered Group 1s, which would be internally a lower level offense with less punishment. But those things are serious to the people who filed those complaints, right? So to hear people say that we're just, negotiating a warning letter for something that is very serious to the person that happened to is not always appropriate. And it's also lessening the ability of OPS power, which OPS does have the power. So if a complaint is filed and during that investigation an OPS investigator observes other violations, right, they are also allowed to prefer charges on those violations to the chief if the CPRB agrees to do so. So in this instance, they're talking about the only thing that CPRB can do under the union contract is a warning letter for that. So they could say, we observed a violation, and warning letters are not discipline. So what the court is concerned about today is that they have reached what's called a tentative agreement, where the union and the city have signed off on these contracts. They have to be finalized through council, but they didn't tell the DOJ or the monitor that they had negotiated discipline provisions into the contract until after it was already done. So there's some, as to be expected, dissension on opinion on how that should have been done, when they should have been told, and if it affects the consent decree or not. So the primary question is, one, does this affect the consent decree? And the monitor and the DOJ have taken the stance that it does. The city has taken the stance that it hasn't, apparently. And two, what does that mean if it does affect that? Because there is some conflict between the courts and what they can and cannot do as far as collective bargaining. So we know this out of Seattle, that there was an issue in Seattle where the city negotiated things outside of the consent decree that affected the consent decree, and therefore they cannot be compliant in certain parts of their consent decree, even though they've been relieved of 98% of their consent decree. The parts that they solidified in collective bargaining are now a problem, and they're locked into that portion of the consent decree for a long time until they can address those. So that was something that is not mentioned in the semi-annual report, that a great deal of time was spent discussing today. And we'll have to wait to see what the outcome of that is. The collective bargaining agreements affect everything we do, so, I know we've had a little bit of teachings on during our training, but it is definitely worth the commissioner's time, energy, and effort to really read those agreements, understand those agreements, look at those agreements, follow the negotiation process, and have an opinion on that stuff moving forward. So it is something that was mentioned in the consent decree status conference that the public may not be aware of because it wasn't mentioned in the 13th semiannual report, and it was an issue that came up pursuant to that report being published. So the next steps with this, the semiannual report, is you will see a city's rebuttal to that. They will file with the court, and I think they're either a number ahead or behind when they do those. So if they're on the 13th, I think it'll be the 12th city response, and I'm getting confirmation from law. They're probably in the process of finalizing that now, and we will let the public know when we receive a copy of their formal response to the monitoring team's 13th consent decree status report. So that covers that item. I'm not the monitor, so I really can't take questions on that or answer questions, The next thing that I have to cover is the operational updates of staff. Did someone want to?
Commissioner Benito has a question.
Okay.
Thank you. One question that I had, it's not really about the monitoring team report, but about the collective bargaining agreement. Are we able to see a draft of the collective bargaining agreement while it's in this stage before it's voted on by council, or do we have to wait until the process is finished?
So that is a good question, but we can ask, right? So there are, while it's in bargaining, it is outside the view of the public, right? And then at some point it becomes where it is eligible for public, and it does have to go to council. And so I imagine somewhere in that chain, when it goes to council, we would also possibly be eligible to view that agreement once it's signed off. But bargaining is closed door, so any draft is not accessible to us, any proposal is not accessible to us. It's protected by Ohio law. But if you send up a follow-up email to me requesting that we receive copies of that, I will see if we can do that, and if it's eligible at this point for public viewing. All right. Moving on, an update on operations and staff operations. As everyone knows, we have had a position posted for several months for an assistant director of law. It is a timeshare where that attorney is a full-time city employee, half shared with us, half shared with the law on contractual law and other things not related to the consent decree or police litigation. We had a candidate, we were trying to advance the process, and unfortunately that person was such a rock star that in the legal world we couldn't match competitors' offers, so they withdrew from the process. So we are back to promoting that job. It is posted on the city's website, so to the public, please feel free to share the word that we do need a competent attorney for the CPC, and it looks like, just like with policing, attorneys are a hot commodity right now, I'll be honest with you. Everywhere I look, there's a lot of attorney postings, especially government attorneys, so it's ultra competitive, and we just don't pay competitive with the market, so the really good attorney talent is being snapped up, with these high-paying jobs that the city can't compete with. So, but it doesn't mean that person's not out there, so if their heart's in the work, and if you guys have networks with attorneys, please, please, please spread the word that the CPC is looking for a good, experienced attorney, particularly that has expertise in civil rights and the work scope that we do. So moving down the line here, let's see what I have here. A piece of work that we always do that's turnkey is every time the monitor puts out a report, I think we've done it for the last, 5 monitor reports at least. Years ago, the community came to us and said, we have a hard time understanding the report, we have a hard time gauging how much progress is made, so we came up with a turnkey system where every time it comes out, we quantify that report. That is done through our policy analyst position, and we have put a copy of that out today. It doesn't change the monitor's report at all, it just numerically rates it, so we could put it on an evaluation system, and rating the system from July 1st, 2023 through June 3rd, 2023. What our system changed is that there was a 2.7% overall change in the compliance direction between the 12th and the 13th semi-annual report. So it just gives us a number. Remember, it's a snapshot, so it's looking back in time. It doesn't mean that's where we are now. It means that in around June, using this system, it put us around 44%, I think is what we came up with in that report for compliance of the consent decree. So a very small increase between the 12th and the 13th in that 6-month period of time in compliance. And I think they talked about that a lot at the consent decree status. Is the majority of the decree, what the monitor said, if it was a report card, would be in the D and the F range, because using that system, if they were grades A through F, a lot of it still is lagging in what he called the status quo. So it's on the low end, and our report just quantifies that, so you can take a look at how that plays out there. Moving down the line of the website, there's been a couple of updates. We hear a lot of mention of the minutes, and as fast as they're approved, we do get them up. If you go under our meetings tab on the website, for every meeting, there is several pieces of information that are posted there. So one of those is the agenda for the meeting. One of them is the video. Every one of our public meetings has a full video, so you can watch the entire meeting from start to finish if you so choose. And then when the minutes are approved, the minutes are added up there. As of this evening, the full commission meetings are all caught up on minute approval. So the last 2 minute approvals were just done this evening, so those will be up on the website. So every full commission meeting from the time of its inception will have those pieces of information there. As Co-Chair Rodriguez mentioned, we are working to get caught up with committee meetings. Committee meetings happened fast and furiously for a while, and so getting caught up on the minutes. In the meantime, in the Sunshine Law, the videos do count as interim minutes, so there is established rulings from the Ohio Attorney General's office that says the videos can be used as interim minutes while you're building and approving your regular minutes. So all of our meetings are captured and documented there, and information is available to the public to see what occurs at those meetings. So just wanted to make that clear as well. So the last thing I'll touch on here is that on November 8th, we have been called to council for what is called an operational report. It begins at 10 a.m. Council is doing things a little differently this year, so this has to do with budget. And normally, if you've watched or followed how the budget is created in the past, the mayor sends over the budget packet for the year. And then you come during the budgetary approval process and talk about everything you have done that year. I think council made a wise choice. They're splitting up that workload, where in the spring they'll be talking strictly about the numbers associated with your department, and instead of talking about everything you did, you will come before council now at the end in the fall and talk about what you accomplished this year. So they're splitting that up into 2 sessions. Ours is November 8th at 10 a.m. We will be appearing before council to talk about our work and our accomplishments for the year. I encourage the public to attend, and I also encourage as many commissioners as possible to attend, understanding again that many of you have obligations, and we know this. Finally, records requests. If you remember, there was a letter that was sent to the mayor regarding the RISE initiative. There was the operations committee, or I'm sorry, the policy committee had requested several records. Commander Kearney is here. Commander Kearney led the effort with the division to get compliant with that request as expeditiously as possible. So I'm happy to report that the city met everything that they had available with that request, and we have that available. Chair Van Leer of the policy committee, it came in paper form, is reviewing that now. We've already done a staff review to document what we've received So right now, with the exception of a request to OPS, which we're still discussing how to move forward with, we are 100% compliant with requests we've made to the city thus far and received documents on. So that's everything I have for the report at this time. Thank you.
I have a point of clarification. So the OPS records that Mr. Goodrick is talking about, were made by me, I think nearly, I want to say 2 months ago. And it's unfortunate because OPS's response through their attorney, Christopher Heltzel, was, and I needed these things for our accountability work, our committee. Chris Heltzel is of the belief, and I just want to say this for the public's knowledge. Sorry, okay. So Chris Heltzel, as much as I can understand, is of the belief or stating that OPS and CPRB are now independent of the city, so that making a request, so the city has to fulfill this request, but they may not. He's also saying that the charter grants the power to ask for records to the commission as a whole and not single commissioners. That is in defiance of our rules that any commissioner can ask for records, and therefore he is requiring that a whole commission vote be voted upon for every single records request from OPS, and that it would be affirmed by the minutes being also posted on the website. I find this very onerous. It's a little troublesome because, to my understanding, Judge Oliver made a ruling in September 2021 that all records must be given to the CPC within 21 days, and any objections must be made within 7 days. I've asked Mr. Heltzel many times if he has sent these objections in to the judge, and he's not responded. This is really concerning for me because I attended the status conference today, and the monitor, one of the things that I think both the monitor and the DOJ pointed out was the differential in inequality of discipline between externally reported incidences through OPS and internally found incidents. And they're troubled that the discipline, as Mr. Goodrick has explained, through OPS is not capturing actually the accountability that is needed. So I would just to let the community know, because that is how you interact. Probably that is one mechanism, very important one, with which you can hold policemen directly accountable. That right now, as of right now, the committee that is supposed to deal with accountability is not able to receive the records it needs from OPS and CPRB. I find that troubling. If you want to express your opinions to those involved, I would recommend you do so. But I will keep trying to get these records. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to just mention, I was going to respond regarding OPS, but I'm going to reserve those comments. We do know that Attorney Hexel, I believe, is out on maternity leave or paternity leave. I don't know if he's back or not, but he had begun some discussions with the chairs of the commission to determine how best to transfer those documents. So there is some discussion about it. The co-chairs have met with Administrator Perez to help guarantee that those documents are transferred to this commission. I wanted to also mention that we have been involved this week in CIT training with the police department. These are not cadets. These are police who are already working, or the specialists who are working with CIT incidences. This training, it was all day Monday, all day yesterday. It was today. I missed this afternoon because of the consent decree. And Acteria is also participating, and it will go through Friday. I just want to say that this training has just been excellent. For me as a commissioner to understand the expectations of the police force when it comes to critical incidents. The focus for sure is on mental health. clients with mental health issues, being able to understand what that means. What are mental health issues? They have been very clear in those explanations, and this session is sponsored by, these sessions are sponsored by the Adams Board. And they were there presenting as well. We had St. Vincent there. We had Frontline presenting. There were so many community organizations that are participating in this training and giving us foundational information that will help us as we began to review cases and talk about discipline. I think one of the most important things for us has been to hear where there are differences between what the courts say about how they handle mental health issues and what the police GPOs say. And somehow, I think this may be something that we need to pass on to our policy committee to look at and see if we can aid in some way to bring those two sides together. But the judge who handles and issues commitment orders for all mental health residents was there and spoke and gave us so much good information, and information that was also directed specifically to the police who were in the session. It's been an excellent training opportunity, and I know that some of us have work commitments and personal commitments where we cannot attend, but if there ever is an opportunity to attend this training, I think it would be critical for us, because we have seen incidences in our community that were not favorable because of the mental health issues of some of our residents. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that work. I wanted to acknowledge what Lieutenant Mullins and I don't know whether she's a sergeant or Officer Crespo, what they're doing in terms, Sergeant Crespo are doing in making this training available to, to the public as well as their officers. So I had forgotten to mention that when, when I gave my report.
Thank you so much. Now we will move to the committee status reports. Does the Internal Training Committee have a report at this time?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. We will hear the report of the budget and grants given by Chair Adams.
Thank you, everyone. So, we passed the grants last week. That was a big relief. I wanted to, in this report, I think it's important that, I listened to a few of the comments that were made, and I want to make it clear that if it appears that there wasn't a lot going on, it was because there were 8 commissioners working on grants 24/7. So we had to make a decision to sort of put a lot of commission work aside, because we had the majority of the commission working evenings and weekends to help get us through the grant process. So I just wanted to say that it was a lot of work. There was a lot happening behind the scenes. There were a lot of communications that needed to occur in a way that did not violate the sunshine laws. So there was a lot of, I think for us, it was a labor of, it was mostly love, but it was a lot of things. But I think it helped us tremendously as a commission, because we had to build more trust with each other. There was a point where I looked at my phone log and it was CPC, CPC, CPC for like as far as the call log could go back. I was tired of talking to y'all sometimes. But it was really hard work. We were probably sick of each other, right? But it was a moment on the commission where I felt like we came together as a group. And even the people who were not working on the grants, we had to communicate with them as well. And so when they were walking into meetings and when things were happening, so that they could be respected as commissioners and to know what was happening in the meeting before it happened. And also if there were any issues or concerns, that those could be addressed before we would come to the meeting. So I just want to say that if it looked like things were not happening, they were. Because the majority of commissioners were working on the grants. I want to say, I think I didn't mention last time, but I really have to give a special shout out to two commissioners in particular, Commissioner Rodriguez for giving up her entire weekend last weekend and putting together the matrix that we use to complicate the decision and to see where the money and where the funds would be going in the city and what type of programs they would be working on if they fail within restorative justice or violence prevention or mediation. I mean, she literally gave up her entire weekend for that and was still calling, seeing if we needed help on things. So I really wanted to shout her out for that. It really was helped us complete the work. And then I also wanted to give a special shout out to Commissioner Zayed. Commissioner Zayed has been on the Budget and Grants Committee from day one. When I had my personal issues with my mom's passing, she and Commissioner Van Leer stepped up to keep the work going while I was away. And when we hit a moment where we were done reviewing applications and then we have to interview, it was her idea to do the interviews, to tape them, to allow us to come back and watch interviews if we couldn't sit in on the interviews, so that we could make sure that we went back and stayed consistent in making sure that people that did applications were also scoring interviews. So she just has been there from day one. I just want to say, I know I got to get going. So a lot of work went into it. We understand that you can agree with the list or not agree with the list. And we just knew that was going to happen. So we just tried to make the best decision that we could, understanding that there would be criticism of it. But the most important thing, I said there was always two priorities. One, we don't want to break the law because nobody wants to go to jail over a grant. And two, we wanted to ensure that we fulfill our part of the charter, where we had a duty and an obligation to the citizens of Cleveland to award that money. And so those became our priorities, and we worked together to do that. And so I just wanted to say again, thank you to the commissioners. Thank you for the leadership of the co-chairs. And it was hopefully the beginning of us learning how to move on this commission in ways that will push this business forward. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, and I just would like to ensure that everybody knows that we have the 2023 community grant list that was on the table that outlines the different projects, their funding, as well as the demographics of the particular grantee. Thank you so much for your leadership on this, and we look forward to constant reflection and evaluation to continue to improve our processes. The next item of business, does the Rules Committee have a report at this time?
Thank you so much. To piggyback on what Dr. Adams has said, the Rules Committee, we like to request, there is a rule that is missing from, we're in the current process of revising and refining our rules, but there's one rule that has never been written, and it's the grant-making process. I've requested it a number of times, and I think it would have, though I'm very, very glad that everyone got across the finish line, I do think having that timeline, especially because Mr. Goodrick had given an initial timeline that was very doable, and we have followed that timeline, I think we would have not had a lot of the other issues that we did. So I'm requesting that. It is, when we talked about it initially, the Budget and Grants Committee wanted to write that rule, and for the rules to look at, for the Rules Committee to then look at. So I'm requesting that. I'm also, there's a few requests as the Rules Chair that, because I consider it somewhat in my purview to make sure that we're accountable as a commission, I requested the reason I abstained on the votes for the grants is because I did not receive any, I've never read a grant, I requested these things quite often. I did not get any recusals of what the conflicts of interest were. So I'm just making these requests again. I think Dr. Adams is well aware of, and frankly, I never saw a rubric or anything like that. So I hope in the future that we can work collaboratively and that it would be a full commission, transparent process about the grants process. So the rules are being rewritten right now. I really applaud all of my committee members for their hard work. But I will say that no matter how much we refine the rules, it is of much more importance that we are able to hold each other accountable. The accountability aspect of it is the most important thing about rules, no matter how well we write them. And to that end, I did issue a letter on October 4th about a commissioner in violation of our attendance policy. I sent that letter in response. It is actually the co-chair's duty to notify the mayor of this violation. They did not do so for 2 months, even at my behest. And I did not see the letter that they issued to the mayor until after it was sent. It was never shared with any of the rest of the commission. And it included about 54 pages of addendums. I am not of the belief that those were, and also factual inaccuracies. I do not believe that this is a great use of public resources, and it was to excuse this commissioner for their tardiness. So I issued a letter in response correcting these things on October 4th, and unfortunately, Mayor Bibb refuses to intervene because he believes this is an internal disagreement rather than what it is, a mathematical violation of our attendance policy. This is the first time it has happened. There are other commissioners that might be in danger. And we would like to reform the rules in a way that will allow the commissioners to show up and be included. However, this is still a pending issue that is not being resolved, and I'm troubled that the mayor is not willing to fulfill his duty according to the charter. So that's my rules report. Thank you. And anybody that wants a copy of these documents, you can feel free to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does the Community Outreach Committee have a report at this time?
Yes, we do. Oh, are you done? Are you done?
No, I just thought they were going to move you to that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so on behalf of the Outreach Committee, we would like to just say that we appreciate the public for your patience and support, not only for our committee, but the entire commission. We haven't held meetings recently due to the manpower needed for the grants process, but also our ongoing focus on developing our outreach framework, which includes our community survey and our outreach and engagement plan. Our team is committed to ensuring compliance with the consent decree. For that reason, we currently are creating ways we can support CPD in areas of CPOP and recruitment. As soon as a significant update is available, we will promptly schedule a meeting to keep you informed. Right now, I would like Commissioner Kate Kennedy to give a brief update on the community survey.
Thank you, Chair Zayed. And to continue on, I believe, this positive path that we're trying to forge, I would like to also give some shout outs now that I have the mic. My first shout out is to you, Chair Zayed, working on this outreach committee and on the survey that I'm going to give an update about in a second has really been so gratifying for me, and working with you has been nothing but a delight, and I just want to thank you so much. Chair Zayed's an amazing leader. Also, working on the Budget and Grants Committee with Dr. Adams, I will say the same thing, an absolute delight, and thank you so much for your leadership. I also want to thank the chairs for getting the budget and grants across the finish line. So I just want to thank those commissioners in particular. I totally hear everything that everyone said tonight. I agree with the critiques, but I also want to highlight the fact that there are some really amazing leaders and amazing people sitting before you tonight, and I want to make sure that they're uplifted and acknowledged in the way that they deserve. Okay, on to update number 1. The Outreach Committee has decided to issue an RFP, a request for proposals, to receive bids for public opinion poll services to help amplify and increase the reliability of the community survey. So I sent that draft to Chair Zayed. She's approved it. And we've met with the city of Cleveland to understand not only the rules, but then also the timeline associated with that RFP process. Once we have formally submit the documentation to the city and have a precise timeline, we'll be sure to come back and then outline that timeline for all of you so we can all be on the same page on kind of what to expect with the survey. The survey draft has been updated for language, clarity, reliability. That's going to be shared also with the Outreach Committee. If you want to be, continue to be involved with this process or provide some feedback, please reach out to Chair Zayed. We're on a time crunch, but we also want to make sure that we keep the process open for feedback. So on our next meeting, my goal is to be able to give you an update on where the RFP stands, and then also on the survey draft. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is anybody, okay, Commissioner Benito on behalf of the Police Policy Committee.
Thank you. I am giving this update on behalf of Commissioner Van Leer, who is at a work retreat this evening. So a report from the Police Policy Committee. We did not meet in the month of October due to the just conflict of everybody working on the grant program, and that there hadn't been any work group meeting since the previous committee meeting. I'm happy to report that the two work groups of the Police Policy Committee, which are the Behavioral Health and Crisis Intervention Work Group and the Police Surveillance Technology Work Group, are both meeting within the next week. So tomorrow is the first meeting of the Behavioral Health and Crisis Intervention Work Group, and then this coming Monday is the first meeting of the Surveillance Technology Work Group. Myself and Commissioner Van Leer will be the committee members in attendance of the Behavioral Health and Crisis Intervention Work Group, with advice and feedback from Commissioner Early and Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Garrett Ferguson are the committee members who are leading the Surveillance Technology Work Group. So those meetings will be coming up, and then our current date for the next meeting falls on the week that we will be in NACOL, and so we are looking at most likely pushing up our meeting to the week of November 6th. It is likely that it will be on either November 8th or November 9th, but information will go out to the public on which of those dates the next meeting falls on. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Police Accountability Committee have a report at this time?
Yes, thank you. So our update is that we're happy to report that our Brady Giglio work group has met already twice. We're not meeting this week because I'm in the CIT training, and we will meet. We've already made our initial records request, so we're hoping that the city will fulfill that within the time that they are allotted. The other issue is that we were a little bit delayed in getting kind of some of the other flowcharts and a broader understanding of the discipline system. So that is why we have not met, because along with many other commissioners, I don't believe that we should be meeting unless we have work to share. We would rather do these work groups, and you're all free to attend. I do have a little bit of concern about the records request. Maybe I should have mentioned it in the Rules Committee. Is my understanding of the rule, as we have passed, is that any commissioner can ask for these records. So it is a little concerning to me that the co-chairs are meeting privately without me, as both the Rules Chair and the Accountability Chair, who asked for these records to determine a process. I'm not really sure what the process was, because this is not what Mr. Heltzel said to me. He said it was just that he didn't believe that he had to give them to me except through a public records request. So I'm just requesting that the co-chairs include at least the committee chairs, who will, like Dr. Adams and Ms. Syed and Mr. Van Leer, and of the police committees, that they be included on these conversations as best as possible if we get updates. I don't think that such an important process that requires coordination and collaboration between all entities of the police system and the commission should be done behind closed doors with two co-chairs who are elected for a year, and the committee chairs serve for longer in their roles, and they are the ones tasked with getting these records for their committee's work. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. The next item of business is Police Training Committee. Chair Adams, do you have a report?
Yeah, I'll do a quick report. So essentially, we have the use of force work group that is being led by Commissioners Donaldson and Chura. Within the past couple weeks or so, we were able to get a date for the use of force training event and a draft of sort of the itinerary of what that day will look like from the police. So that event will be happening on December 16th, which will be a Saturday. There will be 3 different breakout sessions. We'll get into the details later, but essentially there'll be surveys done, there'll be breakout sessions, there'll be discussions where the public will get to see 3 different examples of the ways that officers are conducting use of force training. The community will give direct feedback throughout that process in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And so that is being planned. So that's just a quick overview of what happened. We also got another needs assessment from Commander Magoo that the training committee will have to go through to provide feedback and recommendations for. And I just want to, before I go, I wanted to ask if Commissioner Chura or Donaldson if there was anything to add that I might have missed.
No, nothing here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next item of business is old business. At this time, does the ad hoc committee for legal counsel have a report or an update to share?
Yes, the ad hoc committee, which Mr. Early and Mr. Van Leer, and with some support from Mr. Donaldson, would like to remake our motion to select Mark Wallach as our outside counsel for this issue with the conflict of interest in the mayor's adverse position with regards to the appointment of Jason Goodrick as ED. So I make that motion right now that pursuant to our last motion that established the conflict of interest and delegated this work to the ad hoc committee, and we are coming back with our recommendation. I make the motion that we are going to select Mr. Mark Wallach as our attorney for this issue and conflict. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to select Mark Wallach as the outside legal counsel that will present for the selecting of the executive director and understanding the mayor's letter. Is there any question or discussion or debate at this time?
I guess one of the questions I want to ask is, will there be an open interview of Mr. Wallach before it's determined that he is the outside counsel?
Well, if I may answer, and if we could be free in our, because we're going to have to go back and forth, I would like to point you to Mr. Griffin, who is the law director's letter from October 4th, in which he, sorry, not October 4th, hold on for a minute. Steps to engage outside counsel. This was sent on August 30th. And Mr. Early, the co-chairs, and I met with the law department in order to map out the next steps after our first conflict of interest vote, which was on July 26th. And Mr. Griffin finally sent me this process, and the process, which I'm happy to share also with the public, requires a statement of conflict, a canvassing of attorneys, which could be delegated to a committee or the executive director to perform the informal canvass of multiple law firms with the necessary legal expertise. And then how to address the outside counsel will be selected. So the option is the committee or the executive director, as appropriate, recommends the outside counsel to CPC, and CPC votes to accept or reject the recommendation. CPC may move and approve other legal counsel that was considered by the committee or executive director but was not recommended. And option B, which because this is an issue involving Mr. Goodrick, he is, we have taken him out of the process, is to authorize the executive directors to select the outside legal counsel. So my understanding is from Mr. Griffin's own process that we have fulfilled this. I do not see any, I will remind you that there are, I guess my issue is, are you stating that for this one attorney, we need to interview publicly, or will we have to do it for every single attorney? And this is concerning to me because, as you can see, it would require a special meeting or waiting for a monthly meeting. And I'm growing concerned that we had established the conflict of interest on July 26th, and 3 months later, we have not secured an outside attorney. The monitor today stated that this is one of the things they are asking the CPC to do, is to hire an independent attorney. And from what Mr. Goodrick has told us, unfortunately, one of the candidates that we needed for the law director position, the other alternative attorney, went to another position. Mr. Wallach is very experienced. He worked actually for the city from 1979 to 1981. He has the relevant municipal law experience. The other lawyer, I went to also great effort to find him because most of the other lawyers have conflicts with the city because they work with the city. So I guess I'm trying to understand what is the purpose of, I talked to 12 attorneys that were recommended by other attorneys. They cannot serve as an attorney. What would you like? What would you like that we do? Is that interview the attorney and then select him? Or is there something that's impeachable or concerning about him that you have discovered? And I believe that Co-Chair Rodriguez also took the initiative to speak to Mr. Wallach, so I'd like to know what the concern is.
So I would say that we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion or debate? We're going to go to make sure that everybody has a turn. Commissioner Adams.
Just for clarification, I thought the question was, will this interview be conducted for the public? I think that was the question that was on the table. My thoughts are, you know, everyone knows we're in the public where I've stood on this. I think, to your point, Commissioner Wong, because this has been going on for such a long time, it has been the main point of so many of our meetings. I think the public deserves to see whoever we're interviewing for this position because it has been a big point of contention for this commission. So I just think that for the, you know, Commissioner Wong, you've been very...
so let's refrain from
I'm sorry,
speaking.
To the chairs, I apologize. But I think that there's been a lot of emphasis on making sure that there's transparency for the public. So I would be willing to support this motion with the understanding that it will be conducted publicly. And to the other question that was made, I just think that if we begin a pattern of interviewing and having it open for the public to see, then if there are additional attorneys, my suggestion would be to open up the interviews of those attorneys as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Donaldson.
Yes, to the chair. So I just have 2 points. So I know that the motion that was passed at the end of September included language about the ad hoc committee, which consisted of Commissioner Early, Commissioner Van Leer, Commissioner Wong. We're going to basically meet and advise the full commission on who the council should be. So my one question is, has that committee collectively met, like the 3 of them actually met together and made that determination, or was it individual meetings? And then my other question is, I know that there was also an email sent to the ad hoc committee that basically said that that Mark Griffin's recommendation for it to be a public meeting should move forward. So I believe the availability was requested for the ad hoc committee members. I was CC'd on that email, so that's how I know exactly what it says. But it basically said, we are going to have a public Zoom meeting. Please send me your availability so that we can move forward with having this public meeting. So I'm also wondering if that public meeting has not happened, why did it not happen? So 2 points I have again. I'm just trying to figure out if the ad hoc committee actually met to make the determination, and if the idea of having a public meeting is not happening now, I just want to know why it's not happening.
We have Commissioner Benito.
Oh, should we answer the question first?
I would be happy to let Commissioner Wong respond.
Commissioner Wong.
So the ad hoc committee has met, you know, as other ad hoc committees we've had. We didn't have public meetings because we were not in quorum. And we have decided on Mr. Wallach. I will note, I've written, and it's going to be sent soon, a memo to the monitor on this issue detailing about 12 or 13 instances that seem to be open obstruction in finding this, in securing this attorney, and including the behavior of the co-chairs in coordination with Mr. Griffin. I will note again that Mr. Griffin's own process did not include a public interview until after we suggested that we would be securing Mr. Wallach. And then the attacks on Mr. Wallach continued. And I will say so that there is no violation of OMA. Maybe there's some misunderstanding of OMA. We were 2 commissioners that interviewed because Mr. Early wasn't available, Mr. Van Leer stepped out. Then Mr. Donaldson and I interviewed Mr. Wallach. There was no OMA requirement there because we weren't in quorum. And there's no requirement in Mr. Griffin's process of an interview. It's also a little unclear to me if he's saying that we're violating OMA, I would like him to state that more clearly to me. If he's saying that he prefers us to be transparent. And I will say, and let me just open it up for everyone to understand what's happening. Mark Griffin, after initially giving a process, is now changing the process and putting another obstacle in front of it. And my concern about doing this is not for this time, but does that necessitate us from doing it every single time there's a conflict? And you can see the delay that's caused by it because on October 11th, or I requested on October 4th, for this item to be added to the agenda for the special meetings on October 11th. Co-Chair Rodriguez not only denied that request, she also tried to exclude me from the meeting altogether, saying that I hadn't properly recused me from the grant recusal process. And then during this entire grant process, Co-Chair Ridgway told me that I was not allowed to hold any meetings at all. So just so you did, you have, there's an email.
Thank you. We have a
I'm
motion,
not,
so
I have the
please-
right to finish. And
Please
we are
wrap up.
right now, I've made a request for a special meeting. I did not want to talk about it today. Rule 1.7.3, and I've not been answered as to when this special meeting will be, and it has to be within a week. So and then it was suddenly put on the
It is
agenda,
highly
not put on the
recommended
agenda.
that you have a special meeting with the candidate. It is my hope that this
No, I
vote, it is my hope that this motion passes and that we allow the committee, the ad hoc committee, to select that representative, and then a special meeting will occur so that we have in-person, like an in-person meeting with him, right?
I'm sure you will meet, he has made himself available to you, he has met you, and there's no, I want to go back to Mark Griffin's own process. There is no additional interview necessary.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Benito. Was her hand, Commissioner Benito, then it was Kennedy, and then.
A couple things. First is I want to express my desire for us to be able to wrap up this discussion and this issue as expeditiously as possible so that we can get back to the work of police reform. We have heard a number of public comments saying that they would like to see us handle disagreements in a more respectful and collaborative manner. And my concern with this issue is that we are seeing repeated meetings where this issue is taking over, and we are devolving into, for lack of a better word, messy conflict. So I would just, because of that, I do want to make 2 points on this issue. One is that I agree with Commissioner Wong in that we were outlined a process by Law Director Griffin, who said these are the steps that should be taken. Those steps were followed through the motion that was created as a second motion to the same issue in the last meeting. Those steps that ad hoc committee has made a recommendation. We are trying to vote on that recommendation. I think that I would like to offer some grace and goodwill to Director Griffin and the co-chairs, who I believe are expressing interest in creating a different process for the future, I think, of how we would hire an outside attorney. I think that in the middle of the process that's already been laid out for us is not the right time to change this process, as I think that that is prolonging an inevitable, prolonging this situation and leading us into more conflict. However, I am very open to the idea of when we seek future counsel that we have a full commission interview or a public interview of that counsel. I think that more transparency is great for us as a commission, and so I think that that is the intent of what the co-chairs and Director Griffin. Even with the budget and grant. Oh, I'm talking about the interview, the request for a public interview. Sorry, sorry. If I mischaracterized what you guys requested, I apologize. So I would just like to say that I would request that we follow through with the process that was recommended to us, that was asked of us, and that we finish that to its conclusion. And then I would be more than happy for us to say, in the future, when we are hiring attorneys, that we have a public interview. But I think that for us to be able to move forward and put this issue behind us, we should move forward with the motion that was made today.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you. I agree with much of what Commissioner Benito just said. This issue has taken up so much of our public meeting time, and we have so much to discuss, to address, right, to get done. And I am personally very weary on this issue. I will be voting no, not because of the outside attorney issue itself, but from what I've just heard tonight, I'm concerned that some of these processes with the commission are being weaponized to attack my colleagues, and I will not vote in support of that ever. So I just wanted to make the reason for my vote crystal clear. Thank you.
Commissioner Zayed.
First, I would like to say that I believe that from what I've seen, Commissioner Wong, Commissioner Early, and Commissioner Van Leer have followed the exact process that Mark Griffith set before them to follow to hire the lawyer. I don't feel like there's a need for an open interview to be done. If an open interview was required, then Mark Griffith himself would have had to do an open interview for his attorney who gave the opinion on with the letter from Attorney Beasley. There was no open interview for her to give that, so I don't think there's one needed for this. I think the large consensus from the residents who have spoken up about this is that we need to move forward with this. We cannot go on with another meeting where this is the main topic and this takes up so much. And I think that as far as the open meeting goes, we have been put in this place to make decisions on behalf of the community. They've entrusted us to do that. And sometimes it's going to take us, it's going to rely on us making decisions without tons of feedback, like the gentleman said, without hearing from politicians or whatever someone says on the mic. We're going to have to do the work, and we are going to have to make those decisions.
Commissioner Early.
Thank you to the chair. I just want to say to reinforce that all of the policy and recommendations that were given to us to make this decision was followed. They were followed to the T. Secondly, I'd like to go back because this is really less about an attorney and more so about the decision of our executive director. And so with that, I want us to keep that in mind because what we have done is voted on who our executive director is. That still has not been respected. We have followed the policy. That is not being respected, and yet here we are. At some point, We need the support of our co-chairs on the decisions that we make. We cannot continue to go back and forth with what City Hall says and who we are and the power and authority that we have. We have decisions to make. We need to make them. We have voted. We did the right thing. We followed the policy. We did the right thing. I'm asking for our co-chairs to just simply back us in this process. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that haven't spoken that would like to speak at this time? Commissioner Donaldson.
So just wanted to clarify a couple of things. First thing is Commissioner Wong did invite me to speak with the council member or the council or the attorney. I stepped in because the other members of the committee were not available. I did not interview I did not interview Mark, the attorney. I did not ask him any questions. In my opinion, it was not an interview. It was simply a discussion that Commissioner Wong and I were having with him. So I just want to clarify that because I know that the idea that we interviewed Mark has been, put out there, but that's not true. In my opinion, I'm a recruiter full time, so when I interview candidates, I have a rubric, I have questions, I have things that I ask. I did not ask him any questions at all. So I just want to clarify that. The second thing is I totally agree with Commissioner Early that the focus on all of this should be the executive director. We need that position to be determined, we need it to be finalized, and we are going in circles, and I'm still not quite sure where this is going to end, honestly. The reason why I supported the motion at the end of the month, at the end of September, was because I wanted this process to move forward. I'm going to support the motion tonight because I want this process to move forward. We're not going to move forward unless we can finalize something. We have to get somewhere with this, and although I'm going to support the motion, I still don't know what the outcome is going to be because the city and the law department has been very clear about their opinion on the processes. If they feel that we haven't followed it, and if we vote yes and we move it forward anyway, are they going to come back and say, okay, you still haven't done it? So, it's just back and forth, and we are in, this is the 9th month since we had our first meeting. This is the 4th month since the hiring committee was initially supposed to meet, and that didn't happen. So, I'm just not sure what the outcome is going to be, but I am still going to support the motion because I would like for us to try to move forward and establish something, but I'm still not confident that what we're seeking to establish is going to happen.
Co-Chair Ridgway.
Yes. For the record, I just want to say that at no point have I questioned the capabilities or anything about Mark Wallach. I guess I spelled that Wallach. Okay. I do not know him. I have not spoken to him. So to imply that I'm making negative comments about him is totally wrong and inappropriate, and it isn't true. The reason I asked the question about the interview was because yesterday I did check with Mark Griffith. I wanted to make sure we understood how this process was going to work. He said again that there must be a public interview. Now, he referred me to Amy Huff, and this is the memo she sent to me at 4:31 today. The procedure for engaging external legal counsel and every other decision the CPC makes is to follow your procedures in making a series of if-then decisions. For example, if the CPC wishes to have an ad hoc committee, then it should follow its rules to create that committee and use it for that purpose. If the CPC wishes to go into an executive session, and this is personnel that should have been discussed in an executive session and not in a public forum. If the CPC wishes to go into an executive session, then it should follow the specific instructions on entering and exiting an executive session. Director Griffin recently reiterated that the public's business should be conducted in public. So I just wanted to share that. That came in to me today at 4:31. regarding this process, and I think it's important. But I do want the record to show, even though it was implied about my feelings about this outside attorney, I have none. And I will not sit here and discuss anything about the executive director because of legal action that has been brought, and we are not supposed to discuss that at this table. So I will not discuss that at this table at all, and I will say what I have said because I think it's important to read what Amy Huff from the City Public Records Office sent today at 4:31. That's why I asked. That's why I asked whether the person was going to be interviewed.
So we have Benito, we have Commissioner Wong, and then we have Commissioner Early. And then after, if nobody else that haven't spoken, we're going to call for a vote. Commissioner Benito?
Thank you. I really appreciate the comments from Commissioner Donaldson. I do think that for the future, it would be better for us to lay out a formal interview process, and I agree with the idea of a public and transparent interview process. However, I just would like to point out that the advice that we received from Mr. Griffin described that we would perform an informal canvass of multiple law firms. It does not say that an interview needs to be conducted. And then also in the motion that we voted on last month, it says that it granted the ad hoc committee the authority to seek out and review potential lawyers or firms. So actually nowhere in the language does it say that an interview needs to be held. That said, do I believe that it would be better for the future that we have a formal interview? Yes. But I think that in terms of for the legality or just the judiciousness of what we are currently voting on, I actually don't think anywhere it says that we have to have an interview.
Commissioner Wong?
Not to get back into, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but I've been hearing things that Mr. Wallach should be impeached or recused from this because he worked for the city from 1979 to 1981. I heard with my own ears. I've heard people saying that we should get a free attorney, that having a paid attorney, a free attorney would be very incentivized, obviously, to help us. And I do want to know, because Ms. Benito has already made my point, Amy Huff's email still does not say anything about the requirement. I just want to make it very clear that what she read out loud does not say that there's a legal requirement for an interview. And it's a little confusing for me to hear, on one hand, the desire for open transparency being connected with this interview, but then also Co-Chair Ridgway said that it should be an executive session, which would be the complete opposite of transparency. But you said those are the two processes. You said that personnel matters should be discussed. So I'm happy to give all these emails. The reason why we're having this discussion, in my opinion, is that Mr. Griffin's emails are so cloaked and veiled. He's talking about any number of issues. It is not clear. The only clear thing we have from him is the process that he sent out. And quite frankly, I don't understand, why does he give us a process and then 1 month later he says, oh yeah, I forgot this law that I think you may want to consider. To me, he's the law director. He should know these laws in and out. Why was it that when we named Mark Wallach, who knows Mark Griffin, who is a fierce litigator and fighter for his clients, suddenly these issues come up? So I'll leave it there.
Commissioner Kyle?
I'll just be quiet. I'll refrain.
Let's call the vote. The question is on the adoption to have Mark Wallach as our outside legal counsel to provide expertise on the mayor's letter.
And the conflict of interest. It's not just the mayor's question, it is for the conflict of interest,
And the conflict of interest.
which we're still in disagreement about.
Commissioner Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Schur?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Nay.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Co-Chair Ridgway? Commissioner Rodriguez? No. Commissioner Wong? Commissioner Zayed?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carried. So the next items,
Where does this go?
we'll let Commissioner Wong, I think she had a comment.
Well, the next step is that there's a contract, a job contract made with Mr. Wallach.
Your mic isn't on.
The next step is that a contract for work is engaged with Mr. Wallach, who I'm still happy to announce is still interested in being our lawyer.
Thank you. So as I always do as co-chair, I'm going to pass the motion forward, and that will go with law to work with the ad hoc committee with the steps that Commissioner Wong has set forth. Commissioner Benito.
I have a new business item, if that's all right for now. I would like, based on the executive director report that we received, and based on the status conference today and the questions about the new tentative collective bargaining agreement, this motion is, I will read the motion in a second, but is basically that we request that we send a letter from the entire commission requesting a copy of the tentative collective bargaining agreement so that we can review it and share feedback. I believe that this need is based on our authority over the police discipline process, and also based on the fact that Charter 115.5 gives the commission greater access to city and police documents than the general public. So I believe that this that this request, does not need to be handled through FOIA, and also can be done before the collective bargaining agreement is completed. I also would like to note that, especially given that there's been some discussion about what is needed in order for us to request certain documents, I think that for us to have a request come from the entire commission, as voted on as a full commission, will make it easier for us to have this request met. So the motion that I'm going to make is I move to that we send a letter on behalf of the entire commission requesting a copy of the tentative collective bargaining agreement, so that as a commission we may voice any potential concerns to the city before the collective bargaining agreement is finalized.
I second the motion.
It has been properly moved in second for the commission to create a letter in efforts to obtain the draft collective bargaining agreement. Any question or debate at this time?
Yeah, to the chair, I think it is important that the discussion regarding this was heard today in the consent decree meeting. There will be other discussions that will be happening specifically between the federal monitors, the United States attorneys for the Department of Justice, and the city and police department regarding those contracts. That has to be discussed and resolved before they're going to release any documents. I'm not saying we can't request them, but it was very clear today at the consent decree meeting about a process regarding this. The Department of Justice does not agree with that, what happened with those union contracts. The federal monitors do not agree with what happened with those police contracts. And I believe that that decision was reached, that there had to be further discussion about it. And so, I mean, it doesn't hurt us to request, but I would say to you, it may not happen. Eventually, yeah, but not before some of this has been worked out among the United States attorneys, the federal monitors, and the city law department and the police department. So I just wanted to mention that as something to think about. It doesn't prevent us from requesting the document, but if we don't get it, I would like to say we need to know why we didn't get it up front. There is a process. So that's what I would say, yeah.
Any other further comment Commissioner Wong?
So I can understand because we're not parties to the consent decree. I would also like to request maybe Mr. Griffin give us his legal opinion as to where our role would be in this process. I would like more than just a draft. I think that we should be present to observe some of these negotiations. We are probably, hopefully when we come to full fruition, we'll take on some of the responsibilities of the monitor. So I'm wondering if people are open to at least getting Mr. Griffin's opinion on this, written opinion.
Chair
to the-
Adam,
to the-
Commissioner Adams.
I'm sorry, to the chair. I just want to say I think this is an important issue because when we first came on the commission and we received, we were reading a lot of documents, and two of the documents that we read were actually the union contracts. And I remember having a conversation with Jason about how in the future we need to come up with a plan of how we're going to address some of these issues between what we have to do as a commission and what the goals of the city and the consent decree are and how those contracts are written. Because we're in a position where that contract is a legal binding agreement, and if we can't change some of the language in the contract, then it is going to literally be a barrier for the work that we need to do. So I heed what Co-Chair Ridgeway is saying, but I do think, not say but, and I do think that we should try to get these documents, and then we may learn that there's more clarity on how to get them. But this contract is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, it will be agreed upon around February, March 2025. So I think that there's time, and we need to figure out how to get our hands on this before it's all agreed upon and passed and signed, and then we're trying to accomplish our goals, and we can't accomplish our goals because we sat back and let them write a contract that is in conflict with what we have to do. So I support it, and I just think earlier is better so that we can figure out, because obstacles will be thrown in our way.
And I'm just going to give a point of clarification, and I'm glad we have the law department here. So obviously not an attorney, but keep in mind the federal government and the local government are two independent things. You're an arm of the local government. So as far as I know, there's no injunction or embargo from the judge on these documents at this time at the federal level. Even if there was, I'm not certain that would apply to the local charter in the state of Ohio. So the ask, there's nothing wrong with the ask. Now, if it's in conflict with state law on what level of sharing and what level of protection it has under collective bargaining, that is what we will find out, right? But the ask unto itself is, in my opinion, not a violation of the court. So we've been in of the federal court. So we've been in similar situations where they're discussing policy and things like that, right? And they don't agree. This is similar, except the collective bargainings are protected. The DOJ knows that. So that's why they're overly concerned, is because it may have reached a point of protection that even they can't undo as the federal government at this point. And that happened in Seattle. So that's where their concern is how far it's gone before they were involved, and what that means for the consent decree moving forward, right? But they know that they can't stop state collective bargaining agreement as the federal government anyhow. They know that it can affect the consent decree and affect compliance, so it has to be navigated carefully. Our powers are very clear, they're very independent, and they do cross into discipline. So discipline issues and discipline policy is in your purview. If this affects discipline policy, it is open to discussion here. To the question of being able to negotiate at the table, highly unlikely because of the way collective bargaining law works. It is closed door, and it's between the unions and the executive branch of the government that they're bargaining with, you not being a party in that negotiation. However, it would be wise of this department, anytime they're discussing or the law department or considering disciplinary policy changes, to learn to consult with this group. And I think that's something that they have yet to do. I've seen several policies move forward without us knowing, without us being informed, right? The adoption of new technologies, the adoption of new policy, all these things, knowing that we have final authority in some of these issues, it is wise of anybody to come forward and engage with us beforehand. And that wisdom is lost upon some people at City Hall right now, in my opinion, because things are moving forward and we're not part of that discussion. And we even wrote a letter to Mayor Bibb on behalf of the commission from the policy group, asking to be involved in this and involved in RISE, and we did not get a timely response in that regard. So the ask is the ask, and in my opinion as the executive director, there is no conflict with making the ask.
Any further question, discussion? Okay, let's call for the vote. Commissioner Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Schura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Early?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Co-Chair Ridgway?
Abstain.
Co-Chair Rodriguez? Aye. Commissioner Wong?
I'm sorry, what are we exactly asking? Just to request the records?
To create a letter to request it.
To create a letter, is there a timeline for this?
So I'm
And
sure
who will be
that
writing the letter?
The staff normally
Okay.
does these kind of tasks.
We don't know?
But,
Okay, aye.
Commissioner Zayed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Any further new business at this time? Commissioner Benito?
To address Commissioner Wong's question, it's not a motion, but my hope would be that this letter could be drafted and sent out by the end of the week or the beginning of next week. So I'll just state that for the record.
Any further new business? At this time, would we have a few minutes? Would anybody like to step to the mic?
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. Just wanted to go over a couple of things from this right here. Is that loud enough? Okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to go over a couple of things from the hearing today with what the judge and what the DOJ was talking about and the monitoring team. There was a part there where the monitoring team was asking for each side to start figuring out what will be your issues for 2024. Which parts of the consent decree will you start trying to fulfill and be in compliance with? In the 8 years that this consent decree has been here, no one has tried. Well, with the exception of a couple, they have tried, but they were shut down completely. Here are the sections of the consent decree that this department will not allow you to touch, because as long as you continue to look around the low-hanging fruit and get these other things that look nice, these shiny toys, you'll never go after the true issue. They keep having you look at the symptoms and never the disease. So some of the issues of the disease, which are part of the contract issue as well, gets into paragraphs 311 through 317 of the consent decree, which deals with the evaluation process. Until you actually start changing that evaluation process and changing who the officers are beholding to, so that they're not beholding directly to their supervisors or to the captain or to the sergeant, not you specifically, but because then the officers end up taking on the characteristics of their direct supervisor versus the characteristics of the community that they serve. So you have to change that process, and you're the only ones who have the power to do that. So please take a look at that. Make that be a priority for 2024, number one on the list to work on, and you'll start to see, and this was something that the former chief, Calvin Williams and I were talking about in the last commission, that there were some things that should have been done first, that should have been tackled first, because then it would have made some of the other things go a lot smoother. This is one of those things that will make all of your other things go a lot smoother, in addition to, I have to say this, taking some of the things off the shelf and getting out of your 33% compliance rate. Take some things off the shelf, look at maybe the data to make sure that it's proper. If it's still correct, then go ahead and ratify it, and you can go from 30% compliance to 60% compliance overnight. So just start working on trying to get some compliance issues, because all of us want to work together to get out of the consent decree, but we need you to do it. Thank you.
Now you finally hear one of the important aspects of it. Myself have mentioned before the cultures of the police. Actually, there are lots of efforts have doing good. Some of the things did get changed, but they don't have a long-term effect because the culture has not been changed. I believe in several meetings, you have all heard, and also lots of you also agreed. One of the reasons we keep losing the workforce is on our newer and younger officers. Lots of them decided to leave is because they believe how they are treated, the punishments, are not fair. This is tied to the culture, also tied to how you measure the performance, how you set the guideline to decide what is to punish and how much to punish. Right now, we all know in the community, younger officers are actually working hard, but they do not have that much experience. They do tend to make mistakes comparing to seasoned officers. So now, lots of time they are being punished, disciplined for the mistake they actually have no intent to make. On the other hand, there are lots of bigger issues. Later, it will come out maybe as a scandal or as a rumor. Why? Because these things should have been as a disciplinary focus. They have not. This is the reason why younger officers tend to think that they have been punished often for little things, but the bigger things done by the higher ranking officers have not truly been investigated, reported, documented for commission or any other entity created by the consent decree to check on. So please, don't just hold on to your own personal ideologies. Look at what the true issues are. The community are still in the suffering because of that. We have some people coming to different meetings complaining about maybe traffic issue. Why do you think we cannot even do that when this is something historically we know police all do? But why we end up have the situation we do not even have enough officers to patrol the streets for the community safety? Because they have been busy doing paperwork or being investigated for lots of smaller mistakes comparing to the real big ones. But the real big ones are the ones we know, but no paperwork to trace. While you have been doing a very good job about the community grants, that grants would not really resolve the police culture issues, hiring issues, training issues, and disciplinary issues. Those are the things that you should actually focus on. We do want the community to heal, but these things take time. When you are focusing on the grants, other harms are still continuing coming to the community members. So in this case, it becomes counterproductive. Please, using that same effort you put on the grant to start checking all the policies the division has not been made, which are actually required by consent decree. If you can make the same effort on these things, you will really become the first batch of commissions truly have something for community member to cheer about, even if they still do not remember each and every one's name. You should be happy, you will have a sweet dream, because you actually carry out the most difficult task, which the previous two batches of commissioners couldn't really do. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Hamza Kabir. I have a PhD in public policy and administration. I was a police officer for 22 years, and my dissertation research was on Gomez and Diaz's initial report, because the consent decree required 2-year surveys. And you guys were talking about surveys, and the problem sometimes we have with survey data is we don't unpack the data with qualitative research after we get quantitative data. So let me tell you what my research has showed me, because the survey interviewed 1,400 residents, and African Americans between the ages of 18 and 39 had the most negative perceptions of the police. But the survey didn't say why. It just said they were the most negative. So let me tell you why. If you talk to 10 to 12 people in a homogenous group, you won't get any new data. All right? So if I talk to 10 to 12 people, eventually I'm just gonna get repetitive data. I've talked to hundreds of people in the city that are African American between the ages of 18 and 39. I've talked to hundreds of them, and I didn't get any new data. So let me tell you what they say, because they don't show up to these meetings, because they usually don't think that the policing is for them. And let me tell you, there's two ideas here. Policing is either done for you, or policing is done for you. Now those statements sound similar, but they're totally different. Because the people who I've researched won't call the police for anything. They don't view the police as a help agency. They think when the police come, they're going to actually make the situation worse. I've talked to people who said to me, I said, what if there was an emergency? What if somebody got shot or killed, your house was broken into? And repeatedly, no. They don't think there's accountability. They don't think they do something wrong. But more importantly, what I got into, there was a trauma aspect to this as well. There's some people who, when the police show up, it escalates just them showing up. Just their mere presence escalates people, and it reactivates some of their traumas. A good example would be if you're talking to someone who has experienced policing, the people who I interviewed did not experience any personal misconduct from the police. They weren't abused, but their perception was they could be next. The perception was, I could be George Floyd. The perception was, what happened there can happen here. And I'll leave you with this. Cleveland is a very significant city for police policy and reform. 3 cases that come to mind: Stop and Frisk started here, Terry v. Ohio. Beck v. Ohio, suspicious individuals, stopping them started here. Ultimately, Mapp v. Ohio, the fruit of a poisonous tree, started here in Cleveland. We're the only city that has 2 consent decrees in history. No other city has had 2 consent decrees. We are unique because our policies here are on the trend for the country. The things we do here represent what you see throughout the country. And I've correlated my study to African Americans throughout the country. They're saying the same things. And I don't think that the idea is to change that, because if you start with the idea that something is broken, you will think that I need to fix it. I submit to you all, nothing is broken. It's operating as it was intended to function and perform. So we have to get this premise out of the idea. Yes, there are good officers. I tell people all the time, you can be the teacher of the year in a failing school system. You can be the teacher of the year, you can be the best officer in the world, saving lives, doing everything like that. But if the perception doesn't change, and I was in Iraq, I didn't abuse any prisoners, but there was some prisoners abuse that happening where there in Iraq. When I got to Iraq in '07, because there were people who were abusing prisoners, I was directly correlated with that abuse. I didn't abuse anybody. And so we have to understand there's an echo chamber between the police and the community, and they don't talk to each other. There's an echo chamber, because if you say something negative about the police, they don't want to hear what you got to say. And you say something positive about the police, then you're an apologist who doesn't have any problems. So we have to be able to create communication between people who don't show up to these kind of meetings and get this data. So once y'all do your surveys, we have to follow it up with some actual interviews of the people, because that's where the policy is the disconnect. We have the data, but between the idea and the reality, I think is where we fall short. Thank you all.
Thank you. Is there any further comments?
Good evening. So really briefly, I just want to make a distinction or clarification, and I intentionally didn't do this during the discussion because I want you guys to move forward and do what you need to do with respect to the outside counsel piece. But as we're talking about process, so again, for context, when you create a ad hoc committee, you are also creating a public body, right? And so that public body, those decisions that are made in that ad hoc committee, those are things that also have to fall with respect to the Open Meetings Act, et cetera. So now Commissioner Wong stated that if you were the only member of the ad hoc committee who was there, then there wasn't a quorum, and that particular conversation did not have to be a public meeting. But the decision of the ad hoc committee to ultimately make the recommendation to the commission with respect to whatever that decision is, that decision needs to be made in a public meeting, right? So decisions cannot be made via email. They cannot be made via side conversations or phone calls. Whenever there's a decision of an ad hoc committee, a subcommittee, or the full commission, that decision needs to be made via a public meeting. So again, I think you guys need to move forward on this, absolutely. So again, that's why I did not interject, but I want you to know, just for reference, that for any of your committees, subcommittees, ad hoc committees, those decisions need to be made in a public meeting.
I have a question. So why was this not mentioned when we had ad hoc committees before that made decisions about the voting process and also the way to seat the committees? That was back in February, I believe, Chair Ridgway? Those were ad hoc committees. So they were still ad hoc committees, and they made decisions that we voted upon so I'm just trying to get clarification as to why this is arising now rather than before.
So again, I am not making any distinction. I also am certainly standing right here in this moment and not in position to review any past actions just on the cusp right now. What I am just referencing is that by creating subcommittees, you are creating extensions of the public bodies, and those decisions need to be made during a public meeting. And they will. Those decisions were. So that's essentially just the context that I'm providing. So I'm not making distinctions between any past actions that were done, because obviously we don't have all that information, or I don't have that information in front of me to be able to weigh in on that. But again, I'm just making that distinction, and that's the information the context in which the email that Co-Chair Ridgway read, that's the spirit in which that was. And the only reason I'm speaking to that is because prior to that email, I had the conversation with Assistant Director of Law, Amy Huff, about this. And so that's, again, why I wanted to provide that context, and she's not here and I am. But again, please move forward and keep moving through this process.
So is the law department going to reject this appointment of Mark Wallach based on those grounds? Is there any plans?
No.
Okay, thank you.
To my knowledge, there are no plans to reject. We believe that you guys need to move forward with this process. But again, for reference and for context going forward.
Quickly, I just wanted to say, I think that there's a desire, rightfully so, to not be intentionally adversarial with the city, I guess, and even with the police, pick a body, I guess. I would caution, though, in an attempt to be kind of that reasonable voice that is not intentionally adversarial, that you don't end up turning on yourselves and your own group in order to attempt to be that voice of reason. I think that there is some sort of balance between the two where everything is not a fight, but you're also not undercutting your own people here. And the mission that you guys have and fighting really tactfully to get as much done as you guys can. Ask for it all, and then they say no, okay, you know what I mean? Anyway, I think that there's a balance to be had there between those two things. So, yeah.
She's gonna be the last comment. Yep.
I'm gonna make this real quick. Listening to what you guys were saying about these emails from Mark, I'm gonna send him an email today and let him know that I'm very disappointed in him because he's playing the game. One thing he's saying one thing, then he's saying something else. He's playing the game. Now, what bothers me about Mark Griffin, and I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna say it in writing to him, I want him to be the same aggressive person he was when he was the Inspector General with the county, when he was checking them on people dying in the jail. He was checking them. And I'm gonna tell you, I was a person that called on his behalf when a prosecutor went to him and told him to stop doing those investigations. And it was brought to my attention, and I got a big mouth, and I certainly contacted them and said, back off the Inspector General. So I'm very disappointed on the way he's handling this stuff right now, because that's not the Mark Griffin I know.
Thank you so much. We need to move to adjourn. It's 8:32 p.m. Thank you so much for the various perspectives. We thank you for continuing to show up, and thank you so much for continuing to show up. This is not easy work. There's various perspectives, and we look forward to continuing this work. Have a great night. It's a whole different thing. Let it go. Let it go.